Hi folks, welcome to the series 5 Ways to Stay Engaged with Your Teen. Hopefully I can spend a little bit of time helping you gain some more tools for your parenting toolbox and maybe change the way that you engage with your kids at home. So I want you to do this. I want you to grab a cup of coffee. I want you to sit down, relax a little bit. You're in my living room where I just have the opportunity to share with you, and I hope that you'll just sit back and just think through your family, how you can change and move toward your child, because you may be doing some things that are pushing them away. Let me tell you a little bit about me first off. Jan and I have been dating since the 9th grade. Our first date was when we went to this Christian band in Tulsa, Oklahoma, right after our 9th grade year. The band was called Led Zeppelin. So we dated all through high school. Went on to college. We started to work for a church. I worked with Young Life. We lived at a camp, Kanakuk Camp in Branson, Missouri. And then 30 years ago, we started Heartlight, where now over 3,000 kids have lived with us through the years. I speak around the country, spending about 200 nights a year on the road. We have a national radio program called Parenting Today's Teens that's heard on 2,500 stations across the U.S. and Canada. I've written a number of books, and I'm always looking for new ways, really new ways to engage with parents. Here's the thing that's bigger than anything else. I live with 60 high school kids. They come from all over the country. They're struggling, having a tough time. And those 3,000 kids that have lived with us have taught me a lot about how to engage differently with kids, how to take these kids that are just as normal as your kids and my kids, and to engage with them in such a way that we move them to a better place. And you know what I've realized, in most cases, a lot of bigger issues could have been avoided by changing just a few small things at home in the early part of the teen years. And so what I'm talking about this whole series, it doesn't mean that my thoughts in this series won't work if you have older kids. This is for preschool kids all the way up, even if you're a grandparent. And I'll also be suggesting ways that grandparents can engage with their teen grandchildren and play a vital role in their lives as well. Matter of fact, I think that's why God's allowing grandparents to live as long as they are, because this generation of adolescents needs the wisdom from a bunch of gray hairs and blue hairs and no hairs to give them guidance and direction during a time that they're struggling through a kind of a crazy time in the culture right now. You know, if you're like me, you've spent a lot of time with your kids and you've had those moments where you're just kind of going, I should have done this. When you realize that your approach wasn't working and that you maybe should have taken a different tack to engage your teen. I was lecturing when I should have been laughing. I was correcting when I should have been connecting. I was teaching when I should have been training. I was giving answers when I should have been asking questions. I was giving information when I should have been sharing wisdom. I was opening my pie hole when I should have been listening. I was griping when I should have remained silent. I was telling my thoughts when I should have been asking about theirs. Or I was nagging when I should have been content. And I was pushing them away when I should have been drawing them toward me. Any of those things sound familiar? Do you sit back and go, I should have done something different? Well, you have the opportunity to change that. You know, and we all have things that we can change. And if we want to move toward our teens and we want our teens to move toward us, then we have to do something different. Sadly, many of our efforts to try to get closer to our teens only pushes them farther away. So let's look at some of those ways we can draw them to us. And it'll mean stopping doing some things and starting doing some things if you want to remain engaged with your teens during their adolescent years. So we're going to divide this series up into 5 parts. We're going to talk about your relationship, your home, your communication, your experiences, and your message. All of those 5 components will make up a healthy home, but you got to spend time looking at each one of them, asking yourself the question, how can I change in such a way that engages my child when I feel like I'm losing them and they have less time for me, that draws them to me? And so the number one thing, I think, and it's our number one lesson, is about your relationship. So let's talk about that for just a minute. Their world is crazy. I mean, it's a different culture. It's just completely different than what you and I were raised in, and it's continually changing. And we need to make adjustments as we begin to understand the immense pressure that all of our kids are under. And somebody says, well, my kids aren't under any pressure. And I go, yes, they are. Suicide rates are at an all-time high, a 75-year high for 15-year-old girls. And the second highest suicide group is 15-year-old boys. I think what's happened is that we've overestimated the effect of our parenting skills, and we've grossly underestimated the influence, truly the influence of a culture that we think is not doing much damage, but it really is. So I tell you this, you're going to have to be a student of your teen. Get to know them, get to know their world, their friends, their thoughts, their dreams, their hopes, and what they want to do, where they want to go, and why they choose the things they do. And in the midst of it, don't be afraid to make adjustments to your plans. Okay, I'm going to give you an example of that, about how to make an adjustment to a plan that maybe you've already set up. And that plan may be this: I'm not giving my child a cell phone until they're 12 or 13 years of age. And you've said that at some point in your life, and so you've set that predetermined time. You said, that's it, I'm not going to do it. But here's what's changed. Their world has changed. You know, and I've got to tell you this, I don't think anybody really needs a cell phone. I mean, humanity's lasted a long time. Mankind has survived a long time without cell phones. But our kids have those. It's how they connect, it's how they relate, it's how they communicate, and it's how they invite one another to participate in each other's life. And so maybe if I give them a phone earlier, I can have more time to train them how to integrate that phone into their life when they're still listening to me. Because at some point, they're not going to listen to me anymore. So do you see where my idea of what I said previously, that I don't want my child to have a phone at 12 and 13. Maybe I make an adjustment because their world has changed. Now, people don't like me saying this, but I think kids ought to get phones at 8 and 9 years old. And we're not going to spend all of our time talking about cell phones and when they ought to get it. But my point is, you can either raise a child to live in a zoo, or you can prepare them to survive in the jungle. And I want as much time as I can with the child to help them learn how to take a cell phone and use it and integrate it into their life. Now, I don't like that idea of getting them a phone earlier. I don't really like the idea that we have to have phones. But I understand the need to help kids learn how to not let a phone consume their lives. And whatever we're doing now sure doesn't seem to be working, because you see kids on the phone all the time, because very little time has been taken to train them how to use, within limits and boundaries, something that is going to be a very big part of their life. You know, I'm convinced that it's the little things that get in the way of relationships. A child may be upset because you're not giving them a cell phone. It's how they connect with other people. It's how they engage with other people. That's their social world. And I don't like the idea, but I don't want a child spinning out of control either and start doing things that I never thought they would do because I haven't done a little thing and made an adjustment. Now, the cell phone thing is just one out of 100 things that you can change. There's a lot of small things to change. But as you remain in tune with your child and understand their culture and try to figure out what's going on that I need to change and maybe adjust to accommodate them, then what that does is change your relationship. I don't want to lose a relationship with my child over a phone. I don't want to lose a relationship over a 30-minute curfew or extending that curfew. I don't want to lose it because I'm not giving them enough time playing video games. The relationship becomes key. But here's some bigger things that I think you might need to look at. And I want to capsulate it this way. You know, I've never heard a mother say, I want to have a perfect daughter. Never. And I've never heard a dad say, never say this, that I want to rule my home with an iron fist. And I've never heard a set of parents say, you know what, we'd really like to be judgmental parents. I've never heard those things from parents. But I have heard this. I have heard hundreds of young ladies say, my mom wants me to be perfect. I can't stand being around her. I've heard hundreds of young men say, my dad says it's his way or the highway, and I can't wait to leave. And I've heard thousands of kids say this, my parents are the most judgmental people that I know. All of these things, perfection, the authoritarian approach, and being judgmental, have an amazing way of pushing our kids away. So I have to ask you this. Are you any one of those things? Now there's other things. I can come up with 200 or 300 more things that I would ask you to think about. But are you any of those things? And you know what the best way to find out? Text your kids. Ask them. Do this right now. Just pick up the phone and say, do you think that I want you to be perfect? Send it to your daughter. See what she says. To all you men that are out there, do this. Send your son, do you think I want to rule with an iron fist? And to any of you parents, say, do you think I'm a judgmental parent? And this is what will happen. Your child will be shocked that you're asking them questions, but they'll be pleasantly surprised that you're wanting to engage, to change something so that you don't push them away. Ask. And you'll start a discussion that may just move your relationship with your teen to a completely different level. Because I'm convinced of this. Your relationship is the most important relationship that your teen will have on this earth. And so you've got to ask the question, what's getting in between you and your child? You've got to ask the question with the hopes of changing anything that's getting in the way of a deeper relationship. It's important because teens change because of relationship, not rules, not consequences, not because you said so. They change because of relationship. And so do what you have to do to find out what you are doing to keep your teen from moving towards you. Because you're the only one that can change you. And that's the only person you can change. And if you're sitting back right now going, I have no idea what you're talking about. You're sitting there looking at somebody else. I'm listening to some guy with a mustache from 1880 that looks like he's sitting in a log cabin, which I am, out in the middle of nowhere, telling me that there's something wrong with me. If you don't know of anything that's getting in between the relationship of you and your child, then do this. Say, Lord, search me, know my heart, and see if there's any hurtful way in me. It's amazing to me that when we begin to identify those things that get in between the relationships, that our kids end up picking up on that as well, and they start looking at things getting in between the relationship with us. Okay, so hey, do this. Have some fun with that, trying to find out maybe what your kids think about you and what's getting in the way of the relationship. Do this. Have a night at your home that it's a No Tech Tuesday. Everybody puts their phones up. Nobody gets to talk on the phone. Everybody just puts it up, and that's it. And you sit and have conversation around the table. But do this. Have an All Tech Thursday, which means this. Everybody that's around the table's got to have a cell phone. And so this is for kids that are like 10 years in age and up. And everybody's got to answer every question. And the other rule is this. You can't talk. It's going to be just through text, and that's it. And so what you do is this. Everybody knows that you're going to make their favorite meal, and you're just going to sit and text everybody and say, hey, it's time to eat. Come on down. And it's ding, 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 ringing around the house. And then when they all get around the table, have your prayer put in your phone and text it to everybody, and ding, 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 ding. Everybody gets the prayer. Then it's, hey, can you pass the potatoes? Ding, 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 ding. And everybody's got to ask each other for things back and forth, back and forth. They're just going to have a good time laughing. It's okay to laugh during this thing. But somewhere in the midst of it, in you telling them that you've got to answer every question. If you don't answer the question, then you're going to lose your phone for a week. That you just ask a question, hey, in one word, how would you describe, your week? And everybody's got to answer. What you're doing is finding out a little bit about your child. Now here's the second question. What's one thing that you would change about our family? Ding, 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 ding. And everybody's got to answer. Now, they may start asking questions of everybody else. Go ahead and do that. And they may make some funny comments in the midst of it. Why are you asking a stupid question like that? Who thinks anything's wrong with our family? Take advantage of that. But here, throw out another question. and this is important, what's one thing that you would change about me? And what's happening is you are giving your child an example of what it is to ask if there's something wrong that they need to change. Where hopefully one day they'll come to you and say, well, what is it about me that I need to change? The goal is to remove anything that you're doing out of the relationship equation with your teen. And this goes for you grandparents as well. You do some crazy things. There's things that get in the way of your relationship with your grandkids. You know, you're just as guilty of allowing things to creep into those relationships that divide rather than bringing people together. I mean, it means I want to find out what those things are. I want to remove those so the relationship can grow deeper. Now, when your kids tell you, or your grandkids tell you, what's wrong, don't correct them. Don't tell them where they, how they should have answered differently. Don't explain it away. Don't excuse any of your behavior. Just listen to their heart and try to find out how to engage differently. Okay, and here I want to give you a couple of practical suggestions in the midst of this, just where you can do something that's a little bit different. Moms, do this. Text your teens and ask them, what is it about your relationship where there's something that gets in the way? And ask them if they can go get a cup of coffee or go get something to drink somewhere or go get some ice cream and sit down and talk about that. Dads, do this tonight. When you finish watching this series, go up and knock on their door. Just knock and say, hey, can I come in for just a second? Hey, I want you guys to know something. There's nothing you can do to make me love you more. And there's nothing you can do to make me love you less. There is something about that becomes so important for a child to understand that what you're doing is creating a world where you're going to start asking questions and you're going to start giving different messages to your kids that lets them know of your unfailing love for them. And here's some questions to ask of yourself as well. As you sit, and you can either discuss this with your spouse, you can just think about these things, you can discuss them in a small group. What do you think that you're doing that's keeping a deeper relationship from happening with your teen? What do you think you're doing that's pushing your child away rather than drawing them to you? Dads, would your teens be surprised to hear you admit that you sometimes fall short in different areas of your life? Moms, what's the one thing that you could do that annoys your teens that you think that you could quit? Just stop doing. Parents, if you're parents and grandparents, if your teen is a distance from you, who moved? It's important to start asking questions. And the first place to start is in your relationship that you have with your child. It's the most important thing in their life. Truly the most important thing. Kids change because of relationship. They don't change because of anything else. And I can guarantee you this, your child longs to have a relationship with you just as much as you long to have a relationship with them. Anyway, have fun answering these questions. I hope this piece of this series has been good for you. Look forward to talking to you next time.